Tons of stories to break down. We finally say hello to Kendry Paez. We discuss the latest exit news as well as the latest updates surrounding reinforcements in January. So my friends, hit that like button. Share your thoughts and opinions. Let's get over 2k likes. So let's start things off with some positive news for once. And let's discuss our future Galactico, our new Wonder Kids in Kendry Paez. Now we had a very nice little update from the Telegraph, and they report that Kendry Paez is set to train with our first team from next week. And once he comes, this will begin the first of a series of settling in periods at this football club, so Kendry can, familiarize himself with our club and the country as well too. So the report states that we should expect at least 2 to 3 more visits from Kendry. And positive news too, Paez is already undertaking English lessons to get ready for his 2025 transfer. So we are still 2 more years away, my friends. But honestly, I'm glad that he's in an environment where he'll be playing week in, week out. This kid's doing spectacular things at 16 years old. Like, who is doing this? When do you ever see this, for God's sake? He is Ecuador's youngest ever scoring international player at 15 years old. He's the youngest scorer at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup as well too. The guy's breaking records in the Libertadores. He's doing things domestically at 16. For me, he's no ordinary 16-year-old. Like, he doesn't even look like he's 16. I think physically the guy looks like he could be 20 years old, 21. And with this type of talent, this type of physique, this type of mentality, honestly, we're in a very rare situation. I don't think we've ever been in before, where we've generally signed a potential, Ballon d'Or winner, potential world-class player in the making. And yes, he might be like, Nini, stop being hyperbolic, but for God's sake, we've all watched football for years. When your Agueros and guys come through, aren't they playing at 16 years old? It's always like a great litmus test to understand who the special talents are. And when are you seeing 16-year-olds, of course, doing bits for their country at an international level already? This is a rare thing. We should embrace this. And my only thing is, because we are in uncharted territory right now, we must make sure that we create the best possible environment for Kendry Paez. This is a level of player that we would never be able to sign if he went to like a Madrid or Barca or elsewhere. We've done phenomenal work to sign this guy now. With signings like this, I fully get behind the transfer approach to sign young. Do we overdo it at times? It seems like it, but for particular talents like Kendry, you're either in or you're out, and we have to be in for a guy like this. When he comes here, we must give him the best possible support environment. In our system, we must be bringing out his best strengths and qualities. We shouldn't be diminishing his qualities to suit some team system that rarely gets the best out of anyone. When Messi became what he did, it wasn't because of Messi by himself. It was because of Barcelona, the education and the environment that he got. I know I'm using an incredible example, but this is what you have to do for the very pinnacle of the top young players in the game. So my friends, that's the Kendry Paez news out the way. How are you feeling? Share your thoughts and opinions. Let's now move on to discussing exits in January. Now, these exits, they're not a surprise whatsoever. The favourites, or the most likely exits, are set to be Jalaba, Malang Sarr, Matson, Gallagher, Broja and Madueke. And Madueke is the one pushing for a move, either on loan or on a permanent, because the guy wants to play. He wants to play football. Currently, Crystal Palace and Roma are assessing Jalaba. It's great news that Jalaba now is training with the first team. He's been getting so many injuries. It's been very unfortunate. Dortmund are looking at Matson on loan, but unfortunately, we have filled up our loan quota, so God knows what's going to happen with his future. In January, of course, West Ham are still showing interest in Armando Broja. Nothing new on Conor Gallagher at this point in time, and of course Noni Madueke is another one that could be available on loan, or we'd be happy to sell on a permanent if the right money comes in, because we're looking to reinvest in the squad. Now in January, Pochettino isn't set to just pick the players that he wants. The model is still set to be the directors are in full say, but it seems like Pochettino will have more output in terms of the players he hopes to bring in. What does that mean? I guess time will tell in January. But in the meantime, I want to discuss Noni Madueke, because I don't know how to feel about this news. I think, listen, I'm sure some of you guys watching this right now, come on Nini, like he's been here for a year. He doesn't take opportunities when they come his way. What's he really doing? But I think to myself, is it really that simple? Is it really that easy? Like, do you know enough about his game to quickly write this guy off that quickly? Because I seem to remember when we first signed him last January, he literally just came back to fitness. He was out since the start of that season. Obviously, he was then injured throughout pre-season. He wasn't available. He's had some issues as well during this season. For the past year, all Noni's really known is injuries. So, you know, if we can have patience with Caicedos and many other players that have gone through the same thing, I don't see why Noni can't get the same type of, understanding going his way. Because I'm sorry, I don't really see why he hasn't got many opportunities. Like, when I see him cook for England, for the under-21s, I know, yes, the level's different, but he takes advantage. He's the best player on the field. He's the game winner. He does spectacular things. And I think to myself, how is he struggling at fourth place in the winger position here? Like, the last time he played, you guys have seen on screen, I had to Google this. This was against Brentford when we lost 2-0 at home. And when you look at the average rating, and I know who scored, it gives you like an average idea, right? Who really stood out compared to Noni? Like, is he not just at the same standard as most players this season? I don't really understand things. And I just think to myself too, you know, what's this saying about this this culture of buying young, hoping these guys will be the next great things, if you don't really have any time or patience to really cultivate the talent? I always thought that Noni might be like our Leao on the right, based on the fact that the guy is so strong, you know, 6 foot. I mean, he can literally shield the ball off from two players at a time. You know, he's got incredible footwork. Probably our most consistent wide threat, consistent dribbling threat, which we don't really tend to use in games. We've been seeing Maatsen used as a sub over Madueke in his best position. And going back to my point about Leao, because it was based on the physical capacities plus the skill. If we had Leao at 19 when Milan first signed him from Sporting Lisbon, I think this fan base, knowing this fan base, they would have written him off after the first few months. It took like Leao at least 18 months. He was playing up front at times until he found himself on that left wing. And once he started to find himself there, you start to see what Rafael Leao was really about, yeah? And it just comes down to having patience, believing in these guys, giving them the game time to develop. All the things that we don't seem to want to have any patience for, even though this whole model is based on signing guys his age. So if someone's already leaving, potentially after being here less than a year, after rarely playing as well too, I don't really know what to make of things. And I stress this. If we had a lot of these guys who are doing bits right now at like 19, 20, 21, this fan base would have written them off just like that, telling them to get out the door and go back to the market to sign another guy that we can then throw the same criticisms at in like 12 months time. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Let's see what happens. I think Noni is a player that will come good, but maybe for himself, he might think, listen, I need to be maybe at a lesser level where I'll have the patience to grow. I'll be able to play week in, week out. I can work on my weaknesses over time, and I can find myself playing the position I want to play, which is the inside forward, because this guy's a goal-scoring winger, and we don't ever tend to use him in positions where he can cut in and take shots. So, that's how I feel about things. I'm getting sick and tired of everyone being a football scout, and they instantly know who's a good player, who's not. And I mean, I remember last season how he was getting gassed at the time, and fast forward a few months later, he's not good enough. So that's exit news out the way. Now, my friends, let's discuss the latest updates surrounding January striker news. Of course, one name we're very familiar with, that is Santiago Gimenez of Feyenoord. And for the other player that is in form, Victor Gyokeres, who's playing for Sporting Lisbon. Now, if you guys are familiar with Gyokeres, you would have known his exploits for Coventry City in the Championship, where he was getting a bit of a cult following with all the indie football scouts and fans. And, you can see why. He's now 25 years old. Currently, he's got 15 goals, 7 assists, and 18 games for Ruben Amorim's very, possession attacking style system. And he's a great complementary figure in that system right now. He's scoring goals domestically in cup games and in Europe too. And at 25 years old, I think he's testament to why sometimes it's okay to go down to a less level where you have the capacity to play, to get minutes, to improve. Because I feel like Gyokeres could be one of those like late bloomer guys that people will be a lot more familiar with when he's like 27, 28 years old. You see that happen all the time. And I think it comes from game time, playing for the right managers, for the right systems that get the best out of your football. Do I expect him to be signed by us in January? Absolutely not, because he does have an 87 million release clause. which wasn't certain in his contract. And at the same time, do I necessarily feel like he would come in and instantly just become like a leading Prem striker overnight? I don't think so. I mean, it's at a point right now where, listen, I'm not an expert. I really have no idea behind what these strikers could do. When I look at these stories, and it will link into the next points I'm about to make on Santiago Gimenez, listen, I think Osimhen is the #1 dream guy we want to sign for sure, 100%. But I think there's also a reality that if we can't get him in January, are we going to look towards like a plan B? Could we look towards like even potential like cheaper alternatives? And I think this is where Gimenez falls in, because reports state that he could be available for around 39 million euros due to like, you know, clauses he has in his contract in January. And I think, okay, could the club decide, let's take a punt on Gimenez, knowing the fact that, you know, right now the goal scoring is very nice. I mean, 21 goals in 24 games. I mean, 18 goals and 15 Eredivisie appearances. In the Champions League, he has had difficulties. Like, he scored 2 goals. He got a brace against Lazio where Feyenoord beat them 3-1. But in the Champions League, I think Feyenoord in general have really struggled, you know, playing at a higher level. Of course, they lost recently 2-1 to Celtic, so it's not really saying much in the aspects. But, you know, outside of that, you know, Gimenez is a reliable goal scorer. His big game record is decent. And he's a player that has shown that if you give these guys the opportunity to grow and back them, they can improve as players. And I think I'm reiterating this point all the time. I'm past the point where I just think signing someone in the market is going to guarantee like instant success. It's not. You know, if you're going to be doing this whole model, if you're not going to give these guys a year or two to really assess and develop them, then what is the point? It doesn't make any sense. I think if Gimenez was signed, which I think would be very unlikely, it would be based on the fact that he is a realistic, affordable alternative to other signings we'd hope to make. And then, you know what I mean? Maybe that tells me that in the summer, Osimhen would be the #1 guy we hope to sign. Time will tell. We'll find out, my friends. But share your thoughts and opinions behind the latest striker updates. And now to end things with the final story, we discussed the future around Thiago Silva. Now, with this story in particular, it came from a Q&A that David Ornstein was doing on The Athletic, and it kind of reiterated a lot of things that a lot of us have felt and kind of anticipated. And that's the fact that it seems like the club aren't looking to retain Silva at the end of this season, which is interesting. What does that really say? This team does lack a lot of experience. You know, I'm not expecting Silva to be playing week in, week out next year, but I think having his influence, his expertise, and at least bringing the high standards in training could help a young defense and young team. It does seem like Silva will be replaced. I mean, you're set to go on the market yet again to sign yet another defender, as if like having all the best defenders in Europe is going to make you win games, win trophies, win cups. I'm not too sure, but I just feel like, you know, defense now will be it's the area I would not even think about improving. I think Humphreys could probably do something if you really backed him and supported him. I mean, I can't imagine us needing to sign like a world-class 4th choice, 5th choice defender. It doesn't really make sense to me in those regards, but I guess Thiago Silva's time should be up by the end of the season. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Like, Silva has the experience. I wouldn't even necessarily say he's like a captain like that. I think his leadership comes in more like secondary roles. There was this report that came out suggesting that some Chelsea players were a bit perplexed and felt that Silva was being disrespected by not getting the captaincy armband, which really confused me and a ton of us. It didn't really make sense because Poch has been very publicly open about not using Silva in that type of role. And I'm sorry, Silva won't be here in the next few years. We have to cultivate our leaders for the future now. So it only makes sense that Poch will turn towards more younger players who are homegrown, in my opinion. Again, my friends, it seems like Silva should be gone by the end of the season. Share your thoughts and opinions. And on that note, that is all the news today. Expect a big double upload tomorrow, my friends. We've got the preview, and I've got a big January breakdown for all the players you should watch out for that we could sign. So on that note, I am in EFC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Cool.